So the scope of authority can be defined in 5 ways. Okay, so we can have express authority, we can have implied authority, we can have apparent authority, we can have authority by necessity, and we can also have ratification. Now, we're not actually going to deal with, because it's probably a bit beyond our scope, necessity. Okay, so sometimes that occurs. Just be aware that that's there. We're going to deal with these four: express, implied, apparent, and ratification. Now, express is fairly clear. It's where it has been expressly clarified. So you do have the authority, and it can be written down or it can be a verbal expression of what the person can and can't do. So this could occur via delegations of authority. It could occur by an agreement. It could occur just when I tell you in a conversation, you can do this for me, if you have evidence of that. So this is really one of the clearest ones. It's where you actually have clear, specified authority to act. Okay. The next one, implied, gets more complicated. Implied authority is kind of saying, look, I can give you authority to do something. So I give you authority. You give the barista. So our barista before, we've got the bookshop, we've got the barista. Yeah. Now, the bookshop can authorize the barista, right, to make coffee and take the money. Okay, on behalf of the company, to do all things in order to satisfy customers. Okay, so satisfy customers. Let me just put a qualification on that with coffee. Okay, so satisfy the customers with coffee. Okay. Now, what happens if they run out of milk? If they run out of milk, one of the things that can happen is you can end up with this implied authority. So the barista probably has an authority to go to another shop and buy milk. Why do they have the authority to buy milk? Because it's incidental. It's incidental to actually making the coffee. Okay, so you've got to have milk to make the coffee. So it's incidental to go and buy the milk. Now, what does that mean? That means that if the barista goes and buys milk and doesn't pay, the person who they bought the milk off can sue the bookshop. Okay, so they can get the money from here because the contract is between the bookshop and the vendor or the supplier of the milk. So what we can see is, even though the express authority might have been written down in, say, their job description, make coffee, take money, there are these incidental things like buying milk that you've got to do to make the coffee. Now, if you do that, then what they say is the authority to buy the milk is implied. Okay? It's implied by the nature of the agency relationship. So, when we have implied authority, we're dealing with things that are incidental and necessary in order for the agency relationship to be in place. So a real estate agent, it would be incidental and necessary for them to kind of give the information to potential buyers. That would be implied into the relationship. It's a little more complicated than that. That gives you a sense of it, but how does the court determine what's implied and what isn't? Well, it looks for what you would normally expect in the relationship. It looks for what the parties have done in the past. So if in the past the barista's gone out several times and bought milk, and then all of a sudden the bookshop tries to say, no, I didn't do it. Well, no, you can't say that. You know, the barista has always bought the milk. So that's been implied based upon your past conduct. So they're going to look at the circumstances surrounding the event. So the two critical things that they're going to look at are the circumstances, and they're going to look at past behaviour as an indicator of whether we have this implied authority. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea around implied authority. The next one is probably the hardest one, and it sounds like implied authority, but it actually is quite different, and it's apparent authority. Now, to understand apparent authority and where it comes from, we've got to go back to understand our relationship. So we have the principal who authorizes the agent, and then the agent is dealing with this third party. Now, apparent authority deals with a situation where there might not be express. So we've got no express authority, and we've got no implied authority. Okay. So let me go back to my example here of the bookshop and the barista. Now imagine the coffee machine breaks. The question we've got to have is, does the barista have the authority to buy a $30,000 coffee machine? Okay. So, do they have the authority to do that? Well, they don't have it expressly, make coffee. Is it implied? Would you imply that a part-time, say, barista would have the authority to make a $30,000 decision? Probably not. Okay, so then you're going, well, if they go and buy this coffee machine, then surely the bookshop can't be held liable. But then there's another question you've got to ask is, what did the actual coffee machine vendors or the sellers of the coffee machine, so let's put our coffee machine people down here. Let's put them in a box so we can see they're a different supplier, yes? And that we've got a $30,000 coffee machine. So if the barista then goes and buys this coffee machine, enters a contract, what's the nature of this relationship? And really the key issue here is, do they have apparent authority? Now the apparent authority comes about because we have this kind of relationship. And at the heart of the principle is, does the third party, right, does this person believe A has the authority? Do they believe A has the authority? And really importantly, based on something the principal did. Okay, it's not did the barista say they had authority, but is there something that the bookshop did that made the coffee machine people think that that the barista had the authority? So, for instance, if the barista had have ordered one in the past and the bookshop paid, you can see why the coffee machine people would think, you know what, I actually do think that they've got the authority to buy this. Because it's something the principal did. They let the agent buy one in the past, even if it wasn't express and even if it's not implied in the normal barista relationship. If the principal does something to make the third party does something or doesn't do what you would normally expect them to do, to make them not aware that they don't have the authority, well then there can be this apparent authority, and it's based upon what the third party might actually think. So some cases might actually help us understand this a little bit better.